Welcome to Vocatio. We are Steve and Nicole Whitaker. We have conversations about Christian calling for college students. And we had a lot of conversation last week. We had John and Nancy Lofness with us. We did a special seminar for our students that John titled, How Should We Then Live? Based on the Francis Schaeffer book by that title. And John is a big fan of Schaeffer. Schaeffer was very influential in his conversion and his thinking as an early Christian. John is a pastor at Grace Church in Urbana, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C., near Frederick, Maryland, and is a Sovereign Grace pastor, has been for a long time, and
was
played
my high school teacher.
I was about to ask, played a very influential role in the shaping of your thinking as a young person.
Yeah.
And so I also benefited from his teaching over the years and wanted our students to benefit and learn from him. And so we had John and Nancy come in, which was an absolute delight. And I love it. I mean, just like a quick summary, John talked about the two cities that the Bible describes. Well, Augustine used this phrase, but we live in the city of man and we await, off in the future, the city of God. The city of God is coming, but it's not here yet. So we're looking forward to that day. But in the meantime, while we live in the city of man, we're responsible to build two households. There is the household of the family. We read about that in Ephesians 5 and lots of other places, and the household of the church in Ephesians chapter 2 and 3. And so we have these two households that Christians are called to build in the meantime. It's just brilliant, like really helpful stuff. And I'm thinking about a conversation that we had. You and I got to have lunch with John and Nancy while they were here. And we were just talking about, what advice, or was this maybe this happened at Supper Club, but we were asking them, like, what advice do you have for young people? What would you want to pass on to young people? And, they said, just a very simple and profound thing. The person that you marry matters more than you realize even now. Probably any young person will say, yeah, that seems important. Matters so much more even than you think.
Right.
And you and I just started talking about some conversations because we are also have just celebrated our 25th anniversary.
Yep.
25 very happy years.
Yes.
And we would agree with that, counsel.
Yes.
Matters a great deal. And
Right.
I'm so grateful you said yes. Thank you.
Yes.
So I think we should talk about that a little bit because I think this is an extension of some of the conversations we've had before on relationship.
Right.
I think any young person would pass a true false test on that. But as John and I were talking about that later, and he just said, there's some things that are worse than being single, and being married to the wrong person or to a person who's not a Christian, doesn't share the values that you hold most dear. That might be harder in some cases than even not being married and being single. So I want to talk about that. Where would you begin advice to young people thinking about what are you looking for? How do you even discern, like, what is the kind of person I'm looking for?
Right. Well, I think it can just be so hard to think about because it's so often young people, it's a thought that's always on their mind in one sense.
Yep.
Right. And yet at the same time, there's all kinds of circumstances that can make it really difficult. And so it's like either you're a young woman and you can't do anything about it really, or you don't know anyone. I know, you're a young man who's like, I've looked around, I don't see anybody here at my church that I'm interested in. And so this can be a real source of both like excitement, but also a lot of anxiety associated with it. And I think that young people are probably more aware, understandably, of their present desires and needs. And it's very hard to make good decisions for your future self.
Oh, yeah.
And so oftentimes things, a relationship can kind of spark or things can seem to be moving a good direction. And you want to know, well, how do I evaluate that, right? I've got feelings, she's got feelings, he's got feelings. What is that? Is that good? Is that, if they're both Christians, how do I know? And that can just be so fraught, and it can just like churn up a lot. And I think it's just really important to start with the Lord is involved in this, in every detail of every conversation you have, of happening to. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard stories, and we've had this happen, and I think we've shared this before on Vocatio, just the sovereignty of God in every little moment of that of a relationship and
Yeah.
how God brings a man and woman together. But I think one of the other things that we've been talking about, and we had some other pastors, some church planting pastors here with us the other day, that kind of dovetails with this, is the idea of getting counsel in
Hmm.
a situation like
Yep.
this, because I think that that's where young people could really, really benefit, and a lot of
Right.
the church could really support and help young people as they're trying to figure this out. So I would, and I'm sure we've talked about this before on Vocatio, but just the means of grace that godly Christians, especially married Christians,
Yeah.
can be in a situation where you're trying to figure this all out. Whether
Hmm.
you've noticed a guy and he hasn't noticed you, whether you guys are, you're dating already, whether you're engaged,
Right.
whether
Right.
wherever you are,
Yep.
or as a guy, you're like, I don't know what I'm looking for. I just know I want to get married. There's just a lot of wisdom and help. I think it was Joel Shorey, one of those pastors, said, I hardly buy a couch without getting a lot of counsel
Yeah.
about something like that. And I
Yeah.
thought that was a great a great idea. Like even something as insignificant as that, we want to be
Right.
getting,
Right.
there's wisdom in a multitude of counsel. And so if you need wisdom, I mean, what area of our lives do we need more wisdom than
Right.
this decision?
Yeah. Exactly.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
And so just wanting to, there's a lot that we can't cover
Hmm.
because we don't know individual situations.
Right.
But getting counsel is one of the places I would start. I don't know if you have more thoughts on what does that
Well,
look like?
Yeah, yeah, and I think I like that you take it there, because I think the question that you're asking answers, or at least provides a pathway to the question that I'm asking.
Mm.
Which, if a Christian young person is thinking,
Right.
what am I looking for in a future wife or husband? Like what is marriageable material? What is that quality? What are the qualities, the
Right.
character qualities, the interests? Do we have alignment on these things? Are we
Right.
headed the same
Right.
direction? Those are all important questions. But how do you know? How do
Right.
you know what you're looking for? And the question of counsel there is really valuable, because I think that it seems to me that in the post-romantic era
Mhm.
that we live in, and if you don't know what that means, come to Trinity College and we'll help you. But the Romantic period was a
Mhm.
time in
Right.
particularly arts and literature where novelists, writers, poets, painters, they were really composers. They were all really driven by emotion and
Focused on the inward person, right?
yeah, reflecting, yeah, looking inward for authority and clarity,
Right.
rather than looking outward, using reason to engage the world, or looking outward to
Right.
revelation for help.
Right.
And so the Romantic period, I think, has left us generally with a sense that, well, first you'll just fall in love. You'll just be walking along and this thing will just hit you. And it may. That's not necessarily wrong. But it has really anchored a sense of guidance inward, the inward turn to say, well, my feelings and my heart in this are going to be definitive and
Mhm.
authoritative, and I should follow my heart, right?
Mhm.
We have seen Disney movies and heard Disney songs. So I think that there's a danger in that. And I think there's probably a certain kind of young person who might be watching this, who might even recoil a bit at the suggestion, should I talk to my parents or my pastor or a mature older Christian even about, here's the kind of person I'm looking for. Could you help me shape this target? What
Mhm.
there's a part. Ooh, wait, yeah, that's a we're trained, I think, by movies and music, especially,
Mhm.
to think that's a very personal thing,
Right.
and it's just
Right.
very like what I feel in that, what I'm the kind of
Right.
person I'm drawn to is just
Right.
that's just who I
What
am
I
and who
order
they
off the
are.
menu. Nobody has
Right.
any say on that. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, look, whether or not you like, cilantro rice at Chick-fil-A, I mean at Chipotle, they don't serve cilantro rice at Chick-fil-A. I don't know what, you know what I'm saying. It's been a full week. We've taught a lot this week. Anyway, whatever your taste might be on a menu, there is something a lot deeper involved in finding a wife or husband. And there is a lot of wisdom, I think, to be found in even starting with,
Mhm.
here's the kind of person I think I'm looking for. Mom and dad,
Mhm.
pastor, older,
Mhm.
mature Christian who's in your life, I wouldn't start with your peers on this because they don't know anything either. But I
Mm-mm.
would start with an
No.
older Christian and say, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? Am
Mhm.
I on the right track here? What would you add to this? Are there criteria that I
Mhm.
have in mind that you think are worldly, selfish, or misguided?
Mhm.
What's the relative ranking of these things?
Mhm.
So maybe it's helpful to talk through what are the different kinds of things that might need to go on that list and how do they rank in order
Right.
of priority.
Yeah, well, I think there is, again, I don't think this needs to go down the road of arranged marriages, or this is
Yeah,
not an obedience issue in terms of um, you have to receive the counsel that is given here.
right,
You have
right,
to follow it. But when I think it's great for young people to ask, even very specifically, like ask somebody godly you recommend. Who do you think? Ask a couple godly married people. Who do you think would be a good, if you're a guy?
hmm
Who do you think are young women I should be considering?
hmm
And just, you know, if your first thought is no way, just give it a minute. Just give it a couple days of prayer,
hmm
right? And consider that, because I actually
yeah,
know a lot of really, really fruitful marriages
hmm
that came about as a suggestion
yeah, yeah,
from a godly person. Now, obviously, I also know we're all fallible, and I'm sure I've, you know, made recommendations or had thoughts. So this couple would be great, and that clearly was not meant to be. The Lord was not, in that.
no,
But
some people are really bad at matchmaking.
right, exactly, right. And and so, but I think that there can be, again, I know of a lot of fruitful marriages,
Right,
really happy marriages
yeah,
where somebody in the church, and that's where I think the church can be a real support.
right,
So I think that's a really good place to start. Is that this is something that is this is where leaning on the community. I think we've gone so far away from arranged marriages that we kind of have gone over here to this is just, I do this all by myself, right? And that's,
right.
I
The
think that
complete
doesn't,
independence, yeah.
right, that especially with all the emotions. But I think that there's also the place of emotion. There is a place for this, right? I would not, if someone suggested someone for one of my children and they were not interested, or there was no emotion there, I would not be
Right.
like encouraging them to pursue that. I don't think that's, because you do have to have desire. I remember a verse that I felt like the Lord directed me to at this time when I was single, which was in Psalm, I can't remember which Psalm, but I will run in the path of your commands, for you shall enlarge my heart.
Mm.
And so the idea that when we start with obedience, God is going to enlarge our hearts in the way that he wants to
That's
for
good.
the person
That's good.
he wants to.
Yeah.
And so it takes the realm out of like trying to, so if the Lord doesn't enlarge your heart, okay, for that person, he didn't do that. But are you walking in his commandments? And there's some very basic things there. That's not complicated. You're walking in purity. You're walking in obedience to his word. You are, you're walking in the light. You are being humble. You're growing. So,
hmm
and if the Lord is if your heart is enlarged for a person who is not walking with the Lord, then you need to.
hmm
There needs to be some. You should be concerned about that. There should
Right.
be some questions that you ask, and take that to older godly people. Don't
Right.
assume. Again, if you are a young woman, you think, well, I can fix him, I can change him, I can help him grow. You need to get some real counsel on. Sometimes yes, someone is young,
Right.
but they're growing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things to look
That's an
for.
important distinction because that's a lot
Right.
different than dating someone who's not a Christian.
Right, or
Right.
who's not growing
Yeah.
in
Second
godliness. Right.
2 Corinthians 6 uses this phrase, not to be unequally yoked.
Mhm.
And that's a reference back to the Old Testament when you were not supposed to yoke, say, an ox and a donkey or something together because it would harm them both.
Right, right.
And so
right.
the idea there is that a Christian should not consider dating or marrying a non-Christian that is being unequally yoked. And I think we've all heard the phrase like missionary dating or evangelistic dating. Well, like I think this person is so great. I think they would be wonderful for the kingdom, so I'm going to date him or her in hopes that they become a Christian and we live happily ever after. And the problem is that you don't share the most important thing in your life.
Right.
And I mean, the Lord can
Right.
use all sorts of bad decisions and to
Yes.
work through them, but
Right.
that's a bad decision.
Right. Right.
And
Wow.
I think that idea of the starting place being what is most important to me. Well, if I'm a Christian, it's following Jesus. My discipleship of following hard after Jesus Christ is the most important thing, and that's something that somebody who is not a Christian doesn't share. Now, I think that your point is a good one. Somebody might be a new Christian and growing rapidly, and I think especially at the age that young people are being in college, that's common. You see people grow a lot and quickly in
Mm-hmm.
college. Wonderful. Well, praise God. That's the thing to look out for. So you mentioned asking a mature Christian, your parents, pastor, somebody discipling you,
Say a
whatever,
lot of mature Christians.
asking,
Yes.
yeah, asking,
Number.
is there anyone specific that I
Mhm.
should be thinking about? I
Mhm.
think you could even take a half step back from that and just like I think a really good question to somebody that knows you really well, like your parents.
Mhm.
If your parents are Christians, to ask them, could you just describe for me what is the kind of person you think would be good for me?
Mhm. Right.
And
Right.
I think your parents have good insight into your character, your temptations, your
Right.
strengths and your weaknesses.
Right.
And they might say to you, you know what, you have a melancholy disposition. I think you should look for somebody who is very cheery, who is not easily knocked down, but
Mhm.
wakes up in the morning humming a tune because you'll be good for each other. If you're both
Mhm.
down in the dumps all the time,
Mhm.
that's gonna that's gonna be
Mhm.
who's gonna pull the other up out of
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
pit.
Mhm.
Or you're flighty. It's like you want to go over here and do this thing, and then you're
Mhm.
off starting this new
Right.
hobby. You need somebody who is ballast and who is
Right.
just stable and
Right.
doesn't
Right.
change quickly. So
Right.
and it's not necessarily always that, oh, you need to find somebody opposite from you
Mhm.
in everything. That's not necessarily the case. It could be that you find someone who just complements you in significant ways,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you might share lots of
Mhm.
similar views, similar interests, similar hobbies.
Mhm.
Great, sure. You want things that you can do together, but I'm thinking, especially in terms of character and disposition, what is the kind of person that is going to
Mhm.
serve your personality, your disposition well? What are
Mhm.
the kinds of qualities you might be looking for?
Mhm. Right. And I think on the flip side too, if you're sensing, okay, yeah, I want to be in a relationship that's moving towards marriage. This is something I really want. I would say the starting place is to start with, well, what kind of person am I becoming? How am
Yeah, of
I
course. Yeah,
growing? Am I
right.
preparing
Yeah.
to be a godly husband and father or a godly wife and mother? And asking those around you, getting that kind of counsel. Okay, what do you see I need to work on to be ready for marriage? And I will just say, a lot of times, the Lord, that's how He brings people together in godly marriages. He's working on you,
Mhm.
and He's working on the other person, and He's bringing you together to continue that process. So it really a lot about who you are
Mhm.
as a person and where God is calling you to grow is how you'll be led. And I think even where He's calling you to serve. So don't. I think it's good to be moving towards this, to be thinking about this, but also to be trusting the Lord that where He has you serving, He is going to provide, and He's where He's put this desire in your heart. So
Yeah.
He's working to fulfill it. But I think we want to be leaning in towards marriage, not in towards a relationship.
Right.
Where this is all about something at the end of this, and it's going to look different, but our goal isn't just to be in a relationship and then we kind of have this hazy future hope that
Yeah.
this might work
Exactly.
out, and we feel very comfortable and settled just being in a relationship because we're not alone, and it feels like something's moving towards something. If you're in a relationship right now that is not moving towards marriage, if you're dating but you're like, this is not really moving a direction. It's going to go at different
Right.
paces for different reasons, but it should always be moving in that direction, or it should be ended. So
Right.
this is for the ultimate goal of marriage. And I'm getting off into a number of different points here, but
We have a lot
can-
more to talk about that we'll
yeah,
be talking about this
right,
fall. So
yeah.
there's a lot of
Okay, and you
a lot
can
of
take us back to
well, a lot of pieces of
what
this
we're
that we'll
looking
come back
for.
to, and I
Yeah.
hope that if people have questions, they'll email us and we'll be happy to address those in future episodes. I think that point about focusing on what is the kind of person God wants me to become, to be
Right.
marriageable to someone
Right.
else. It's amazing to me how often I've known people. I think you've known people. We've known people together like this who, when they're like grasping for a relationship or really
Right.
hungering for like when is this going to happen, and they're just on the hunt.
Yes.
They're always kind of lurching about, and they're
Right.
always outwardly focused, looking at who is this person, where is this person. It then the whole thing just seems elusive,
Yeah.
and it's like
God seems to do that.
it's like that proverbial, like you grab a handful of sand and you just can't quite keep your grip
Right.
on it.
Right.
The people, so many people we've known who have said, I think I need contentment before I'm ready to get married.
Mhm.
And they say, you know what, I'm just going to set this aside for now, and I'm gonna really pray and ask God, how does He want me to grow? And I'm going to get real consistent in my quiet time. I'm going to start serving in my family, serving in my church,
Mhm.
and I'm going to work on these character things. I'm going to try to grow in godliness and in all these different ways. Um, I think what people don't realize is that's really attractive to other Christians,
Mhm.
and the
Right.
Lord often responds to that by sending.
Right.
And it's not like, okay, you can't think of that as like,
Oh.
ooh, this is the sneaky back door into marriage.
Right.
Well,
Right.
no, it's not, but it may be, but that's not the motive, right?
Right.
As our goal is to glorify and honor the Lord, either the Lord will respond to that and send someone because you're growing into the maturity that marriage requires, or He'll grow you in the contentment to wait for
Mhm.
the right time
Mhm.
and the right person.
Mhm. Yeah. But and I think we've talked about this before. It's not a passive waiting.
Right.
We're not, I
Exactly.
know sometimes it can be a temptation to contentment. I don't know, a kind of fear or
Mhm.
laziness
Mhm.
or cowardice can masquerade as contentment. And
Yeah.
and it can be, I think, especially for young men, sometimes that
Mhm.
can a failure to just step out and take a risk and move forward. They can get comfortable
Mhm.
in a way that I think we're not supposed to be.
Right.
John Piper talks about this when he talks about leadership, right? You're supposed to be both content and zealous at the same
Mhm.
time. And these are things we want
Yeah.
to be. So marriage is a good gift that is under attack in our culture, and
Right.
so we should be
Right.
zealous and eager to
Yeah.
be married.
Yeah.
Um, and at the same time, we want to be content in the Lord. And we all know this, it's instinctively, if you're a Christian and someone asks you, are you, is your heart restless, or is it resting in the Lord? You know the answer to that. And if
You
it's
know what
not,
it should be. Yeah.
right, you know where your heart is at.
Right.
I think
Right.
you will probably know the answer to that. And if it's not resting in the Lord,
Mhm.
trusting in His timing, then that's where you start.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. And that's there. It's like every paragraph that we've spoken here, I feel like leads to three more
I know
different
I've
things.
got right.
There's
Right.
so we'll have
There's
a
so
lot more.
much.
We'll have a
Yes.
lot more to talk about as this season unfolds this fall. So I look forward to getting into that. I feel like we've gotten off on a good start here, just thinking about um, beginning with what we haven't even talked through kind of the qualities, like
No.
that person should be a Christian, and then there's other things we could talk about. How do you discern those things? How do you discern the timing? What do you do? How do you walk out the kind of friendships and relationships in your
There's a
friend group?
lot of complexity there. Yes.
So much to talk about. Yeah. So I hope people will come back to future episodes. We should
Right.
probably end here. And again, send in your questions, email us. We would love to hear from you about them. Look forward to talking about them in the future. So this has been a Trinity College production, and this has been brought to you by Trinity College. Trinity College trains young men and young women for Christ and for the church. You can learn more at trinitycollegelou.com.